Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, please check out my other videos as well. I've got a lot of videos about Omega Seamaster watches as well as some other models that interest me. And if you're a returning viewer, thank you for checking in again. I have a pretty cool watch I want to talk to you about today. It's the watch on the left. As you can see, you probably recognize the watch on the right because that is a pretty well-known member of the Omega Seamaster family. This is the 2254.50, sometimes called the Peter Blake model, a member of the 90s generation of Seamasters. Came out towards the late 90s and was made through the early 2000s. This is a model of watch that I think is probably among the most popular of the you call the modern vintage Omega era, and I think it's even popular among those who don't have a particular interest in Omega. There's a lot going for this watch. It has a very easy to read design, beautiful Speedmaster based bracelet rather than the traditional Seamaster bracelet, and nice and thin and very comfortable as well. I've done other videos about them if you want to check them out. But the watch I want to talk to you about today is this one. As you can see, this is clearly in the same family as that watch that I just showed you. There's quite a lot that's similar, but there's also important details that are different. I'm going to talk about those, and I'm going to talk about my overall impression of this watch and actually how I came to get it and all that. But some of the big differences you can see right here. The bezel, number one. The 2254 and most of the Seamasters of that era have a painted bezel inserts, painted aluminum, and this one is not painted nor aluminum. This is actually 18 karat white gold, believe it or not, and it's very solid. It's not a flimsy bezel insert at all. I have taken these off of these watches before. They're really substantial, probably a good amount of gold in there, and due to their thickness, the bezel part that's used on this watch, on the 2533.50, is actually thicker than the bezel used on the 2254.50. So it has to be a little thicker to accommodate the increased thickness of the insert. Another difference, as you can see, the bracelet. The 2533 uses the standard bond style Seamaster bracelet. I say standard because that's the bracelet that the first watch of this generation, the 2531.80 from I think 1994, that watch came on the bond bracelet, which is here, and most of the watches from this generation are on that bracelet. A few models did come with this Speedmaster style bracelet, which you see here. This example that I have is actually a little bit over polished, the Speedmaster style bracelet, but it's still, you can see it's quite a beautiful bracelet and works really well with that watch. But this 2533, yes, it has the bond style bracelet. It's a non-tapering bracelet, unlike the Speedmaster style bracelet. So it's 20 millimeters at the lugs and it's 20 millimeters at the clasp. So it is a little heavier as well because of that. So this 2533.50 is pretty heavy when you consider the fact that it has the gold bezel insert located at the top of the watch head, away furthest from your wrist, and the heavy bracelet as well. So it's quite substantial on the wrist, but dimensionally, as I said, same case diameter, so they feel almost the same, other than the slight increase in thickness. So another interesting point about this watch is this engraving on the 3 o'clock side of the case. As you can see, it says limited edition, and I'll get into my feelings about this engraving in a second, but I think the limited edition is a bit of a misnomer with this watch. While it might be technically limited and numbered, it's limited to 9,999 pieces, so it's quite a lot of watches to be called a limited edition, in my opinion. I really don't know what the numbers are, let's say for the other watch here in the video, the 2254.50. I'd be very curious to know what the production numbers for that watch were. I'm sure they're more than the 10,000 for this watch, but I think 10,000 is quite a lot for a fairly expensive watch to be called limited edition. In addition, The dial is different. As you can see, this really was a special or limited edition watch for the America's Cup race, sailing race, and so the dial indicates that as well. I really dislike this engraving on the side of the case. I did not like it from the pictures of this watch before, and that's one of the reasons I stayed away from this model of watch for a very long time. This is not the only instance of Omega doing this sort of weird thing with, a little bit of, I don't know how to put it, tacky additions to their watches. I know there's a model of Planet Ocean with some type of engraving on the actual crystal. Here you can see even more words on the case back. It says Seamaster Professional, limited edition, and the number of the watch. So there's a lot of text on the case, if that's something you're interested in. And this has more text on the case than a typical Omega watch. But interestingly and conversely, the dial has less text. So as you can see on the 2254, there's a whole bunch of text on the bottom half of the dial. It says Seamaster Professional Chronometer and the depth rating. And it's all like a neat little box. And I think it looks very nice and symmetrical, importantly. The text on the 2533 watch on the left is not symmetrical, obviously. While I do appreciate a minimization of text on dials, some dials really go overboard with that. I think it's unfortunately outweighed by the fact that this text is just, there's something off about it. I always felt that when I saw the pictures of this watch, and again, another reason I was not really interested in it, despite loving the rest of the watches of this generation. It's not symmetrical, and also it's much larger than the actual branding of the watch, where Omega and its logo. Unfortunately here it's obscured by the hour hand a little bit, but you can see the word Omega is far smaller than America's Cup. It just doesn't make sense to me. I think this would have looked much nicer if they kept the Seamaster wording from the 2254 where it was, put it on this dial, maybe underneath put America's Cup in a smaller font to sort of match the width of the word Seamaster, kind of form like a block the way the 2254 has it. I think that would have been a really nice looking way of keeping the dial wording, symmetrical and balanced, but also, including the special designation that they wanted to. Unfortunately, they did not do that, and this is what we have here. So I can tell you in person, it's a little better than in pictures, but again, not my favorite dial. And I think my opinion is probably not unique, because if you were to take a look at these watches on the pre-owned market, they are widely available, not that expensive compared to the other models, frequently less expensive than the 2254.50, despite the fact that this has a substantial amount of precious metal in it. So I think you could attribute that to the fact that people are just not that interested in the extra wording, the wording of the dial, nor the engraving. I also think, this is more of a subjective opinion, that the Bond style bracelet is not a particularly good match with this dial. Most of the Seamasters with these stick marker and wedge at 12 o'clock dial models came with the Speedmaster style bracelet, which you see on the 2254.50. There were a few models that came standard with the Bond style, the 2054.50, the 2055.80, but I believe they were just sold intended for the North American market, and they're far more rare than the Speedy style version. And I think that's in part due to the fact that it's just not as good of a match between the dial and the bracelet. Yeah, I really can't get over the dial. I don't know. I don't understand why they couldn't keep the wording to be the same size. You see, it's nice and narrow. It's balanced on the 2254. It's just not balanced here on the 2533. I understand there's a logo, there's a font. Maybe those things are not in their control, or they want to keep that in line with the branding of the race. But I really don't see the reason for that part of the dial to be larger than Omega, and it's a kind of watch that I sort of lament, because there's a lot going for it. Obviously, it's a member of this family of really awesome, comfortable, really well built, phenomenal watches, I think, from Omega's peak period, but unfortunately hampered by a few things. And this is a really nice example too. I don't know if it's apparent in the video, but it's this one is unfinished, original finish, no polish, no nothing like that. Really tight bracelet. Just an outstanding example of how, if you want to really appreciate how well made these watches, the late 90s Omegas are, or early 2000s, get one that is not finished and original, and you'll see how extremely comfortable it is to wear. And here it is on the wrist. I love all of these Seamasters from this generation. So I mean, even with the negatives that I pointed out here, I still do wear this watch, and I think it looks nice. It's kind of, if you like the Yachtmaster look, this is similar. So at least with that bezel insert, the engraving on the side, I know I criticized it, but you really don't see it. It's really not there, and I actually, when I look at it, I kind of chuckle. I don't know. It's just the script, everything about it it's a little bit funny. So, but it doesn't bother me to the point to say, oh, this is not a wearable watch because of that. The dial, that's more, that's part of the watch that you look at all the time. So if you're okay with the dial, these are, you could say, a bargain, I would say, relative to the other models. Particularly the 2230.50, if you're familiar with that, that's another model with the white gold bezel. That one has a speedy style bracelet, has the normal dial wording, and has applied markers on the dial instead of the printed dial that this has, and that's a very beautiful watch, and but also substantially more expensive than this watch, substantially harder to find good examples of. So if budget is a concern, these are a very good value. And if you don't mind the wording on the dial, you're basically getting everything that's good about a 2254 Peter Blake, or a 2531.80, the standard Bond Seamaster, plus a white gold bezel, which kind of makes the watch look a little bit more fancy, more expensive. I still prefer this to most of the current Omega lineup, even with the faults I pointed out. So let me know what you think. I'm curious to hear other people's impressions of this watch. If you own it, if you've looked at it and were not interested, either way, let me know in the comments, and thanks for watching.